Hello, everybody. I don't know exactly what this is, but I knew I wasn't gonna have a Star Wars video for a bit, so I thought I'd do a small little thing, kind of like my podcast that is still not coming out till April. But definitely go check out the Star Wars Expanding Universe website to go see it when it comes out. But I just want to do a little mini thing by myself of, to have something to tide you over till I finish this Dune trilogy that I'm reading. Um, but I have another topic for later on, but for now, I just want to say, like, if I were to, if I were given the opportunity, like, if this Star Wars Expanding Universe was continued, I'm no writer, by the way, but let's just say in this hypothetical that I got to write a story, um, uh, or a couple in the Star Wars Expanding Universe. I would not try to continue the timeline because I don't feel I could do that justice. I would leave that to other individuals to do. I would just want to fill in a gap. Something that is not necessarily an issue for me, but would be my passion project as to kind of meld that all in and make everything connect and cohesive to where nobody could really complain outside of just disliking a certain direction. That has to do with Jacen's arc post New Jedi Order. Because, you know, I'm not going to get into the negatives. It's fine. People dislike stuff. That's people's right. But I love it, and I think I think Legacy of the Force tells a great story. Are there flaws? Are there issues? Of course, but there's no piece of media you're ever going to see that's not filled with flaws. Even Darth Plagueis is it's a masterpiece in my opinion, but it's not perfect because nothing is. Um, but after unifying Force, Jacen achieved oneness, and then he, well, according to Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi and Dark Nest, he went on a 5-year sojourn that we didn't get to see. We were only told that he did, and then he had experiences that they did not give us information on. It just said he did a couple things. We learned a little bit about what he did in Fate of the Jedi, but it's little breadcrumbs. So we don't actually get a full story to fully understand the transition because yes, Dark Nest, Jacen Solo, is not the same character that we saw at the end of Unifying Force. But it's not like it's a contradiction in the sense of, oh, he went from Unifying Force and then the next book takes place the day after and he's this character now. That would be a contradiction. That would be breaking character. There's a 5-year gap, which means, I don't know if you know this, but a lot can happen in 5 years. Look at just 5 years ago, 2023 from 5 years ago, the world was different. You know, people change. But again, that's telling us, not showing us. And that's the only real complaint that has any validity, in my opinion, when it comes to the arguments against, this era. So it would be my personal goal to fill in all gaps and to make it one cohesive thing where nobody could really complain about it. Also, side tangent, real quick, I would also like to write like a short story between the 6-month gap. Because remember this, there's only a 6-month gap. 6 months, half a year. That's like one semester of school, okay? Jacen from Crystal Reef to Jacen and Vector Prime are different people. It is actually way, 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 way more egregious than what Darkness says. Because Crystal Reef to Vector Prime, there is no explanation. We are given nothing. There's no explanation. It is not even addressed at the fact that Jacen is essentially a completely different character. Like, completely in a span of 6 months. What happened to you, dude? Now, if I were to write that, it would be some sort of adventure, of course. Um, and by the end of it, Jacen and Tino Kaw would break up because this is another thing that pissed me off. He's not with Tino Kaw at the beginning of New Jedi Order when they literally just started dating at the end of Young Jedi Knights. So I would have a story explaining why they broke up, and maybe use that as a means to explain why Jacen decided to delve more into his studies and why he's so philosophical by the time of New Jedi Order. That's what I would do. Now, jumping ahead, of course. So this is a 5-year sojourn. I don't know the specifics because I've never actually tried to write out something for this. I've just thought about it a lot because I really care about this story. Because people seem to like make arguments like Jacen's a bad guy. Darkness. He's not a good person anymore. He's not the same person, but he's not evil. He's just more willing to do things that he wouldn't have been willing to do in the past. But here's my idea. The idea is that I should also give spoiler warnings. Yeah, don't watch this video if it's too late now. It's fine. Moving forward, don't watch if you don't want me to spoil stuff. Forgot to mention that. Anyway, I mean, I'm not going too in depth with anything really, but um, so at the end of Unifying Force, not talking about any of the main specifics of the plot, but Jacen achieves something that only a few people have. Anakin Skywalker did for a split second, but he fell to the dark side, so it doesn't really matter. Anakin Solo achieved it, but things happened. And there may have been a few other Jedi, and I know, like, technically, like, being a Force ghost is one with the Force, but you're dead at that point. So, like, when do you. We don't see that many instances of living beings becoming one with the Force. Now, the Force, for all intents and purposes, I'm not saying that the Force is God in the universe because I don't think there really is a God unless supernatural encounters when it comes out, which at the point of this video still hasn't. Unless that shows us some sort of deity for the universe, there is no deity. But for all intents and purposes, most religions that are formed in this universe, most things that are practiced, all revolve around the Force. So in this sense, the Force is God. In that sort of sense, it's not. It doesn't. I don't think it has a will or anything. I mean, actually, that's kind of debatable too, because I feel like the dark side and stuff. That's a whole other discussion. Anyway, for all intents and purposes, Force is God. Imagine you die, and you learn with 100% certainty, like you have no doubt, that heaven is real, bliss. You are then revived. You are brought back down here. All that happiness, all that pleasure, everything you could ever want, it's now gone. You're back in the slums. You're back on Earth. Now, Jacen, at the end of the series, achieves oneness. Only for a single instance, he then goes back to normal. Jacen being as philosophical and being the way he is in New Jedi Order, I could see him wanting to try to retain that, to rekindle that, to have such an experience like that. You want to feel it again. So, Jacen essentially wants to reach heaven again, oneness with the Force. He wants to achieve it because, he didn't control that when it happened in Unifying Force. But what if he could control that? What if he could actually access that at any point? Because no Jedi's really ever done that. So he goes on a religious journey. Now, I hear some people also complain, like, he didn't talk to his family for 5 years. Well, yeah, but religious monks and stuff, they don't really talk to the outside world and all that. This could have been like a really spiritual journey for him, where he wanted no interaction with any other person, so he just fully dwelled and went by himself. I also think there's a girl in Legacy of the Force that he trained, which wouldn't make sense if he's been training for, or if he's been in a sojourn for 5 years, but theoretically, um, she could have been on a mission and met him, and then maybe he's like, well, maybe a part of accessing that again would be by training somebody. I don't know. I'm spitballing here, but throughout his different journeys, he would learn things. He'd have experiences and interactions, um, you know, possibly some negative experiences um, beyond what he's already dealt with. But the book ultimately would be a way of just being a transition piece. It'd be kind of like Traitor, where it's, really character centered, character focused, and emotional. Um, and by the end of the book, 5 years will have passed, and the whole book would be a transition. From the beginning of it, first page, that's unifying force, Jacen, to the end of it. Maybe there's a little bit of time in between that, but essentially you've gotten to darkness, Jacen, right? So it'd be like one seamless thing where you were just like, oh, okay, I get how unifying force Jacen got to this point. But I think the main drive of all that could be really fascinating. Like, you've reached heaven, you've now been shoved back down, and you're trying to reclaim that. And I think part of the key turning point in him changing his demeanor, changing his behavior, would be in the dismay and the turmoil over the fact that after these 5 years, he's tried everything he can and he knows he will never obtain it. Like, remember, as I said, he's blocked himself off from his family just to study this, just to learn this, so he could find this. So that's 5 years of sacrifice dedicated to this religious cause. I'm using, if, I don't know if you necessarily think it was a religious cause, but do you get what I'm saying? And so after those 5 years, the disappointment, or maybe on that fifth year, the disappointment and realization that that sensation he felt, he will never, ever, 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 ever feel again in his lifetime, could be the major twist that starts his transition to a more, plus we learn things from Fate of the Jedi, like he sees visions and stuff. But that's all part of it. That would all, it wouldn't be that single act. It would be multiple things culminating in this change. And so you'd get the more practical, and not necessarily ends justify the means, but the job needs to get done, Jacen, that we see in Dark Nest. And I think that would be a perfect transition piece, to just help that era out so much. Because there's so much to do there. I mean, if I didn't write, I would hope that Matthew Stover would. I hear he doesn't like it. That's fine. But that's the thing about the EU. You could really make everything work if you work hard enough and you have a good enough imagination. You know? I know people joke about, like, some people are like, oh, well, it's a clone Jacen. Like, stop it. It's Jacen. Let's deal with that. Let's actually try to correct it, not by retconning it to be some clone or something. Let's make it make sense. Let's make it work with the context of the Jacen that we all love. Because that's the thing. Everybody loves Jacen. There's not a single person who dislikes Jacen. They either love Jacen. No, I'm sorry. Everybody loves Jacen. It's just a matter of, do we accept this turn or not? Or do we not? But again, at the end of Darkness, Jacen is still a good guy. At least in relative terms of being on the hero's side. He has a lot of different beliefs now, a lot of different priorities. But he still loves his family. Even though there might be a lot of turmoil in that Darkness trilogy without getting into it. But he still has that love, to an extent. And then we have another 5 year gap in between Darkness and Legacy of the Force. And by Legacy of the Force, we learn that Ben Skywalker has been training with Jacen Solo. Jacen Solo has been his master in the same way that Obi-Wan was Qui-Gon's apprentice, or Anakin was Obi-Wan's apprentice, or Qui-Gon was Dooku's apprentice. And I think, I mean, it would never happen, but in a hypothetical world, you use that 5 year period with 10 books, 10 books from, how there's like Jedi Apprentice, Jedi Quest. I would do like a Jude Watson, but also because everything's gonna get dark again, and depressing. Till Fate of the Jedi, where it'll be a little bit more fun. But you do a transition piece where it's Jude Watson plus Kevin J. Anderson. Why those two? Because Kevin J. Anderson, I feel, knows how to bring the fun out of Star Wars. So you'd have him there for the more lighthearted parts, and you'd have Jude Watson there as the more emotional, serious tone parts of those books. It'd be like a 10-part series like Jedi Quest, spanning over a couple years, and it would strengthen the bond you see with Jacen and Ben Skywalker, with Jacen Solo, Ben Skywalker. Show their bonds and their growth, so that way, Legacy of the Force is a stronger story because of it, and um, we could further see a transition, more development time, more time to spend with Jacen to see Darkness Jacen all the way through that to Legacy of the Force. Because one thing that is valid is it's kind of abrupt because you have to do a lot in that first book, um, get to this 9-book series, and by the end of the first book, Jacen kind of goes down the dark path. Even though, to be fair to that series too, he never fully commits. He's not a Sith Lord till after the 5th book. So that's also in of itself a lot of development, but people still feel like it's kind of rushed. So if you had another 10-book series, a young adult series that could slowly show that transition even more, then it would feel seamless by the time we got to Legacy of the Force. With that novel in between Unifying Force and Darkness, and then a 10-book young adult series in between those two, it'd be one seamless, beautiful story. And I love Ben Skywalker, and I love his relationship with Jacen before it starts going bad, and it's heartbreaking when it goes bad, but I want to see more of that transition period where they are just buddies, because there's so much emotional story beats you could use there, because for all intents and purposes, Ben is Jacen's redemption. Ben is Jacen's second chance because he lost his brother. So Ben is his second chance. Now he would fail him miserably, but that's his second chance. You could build upon that and make that so much more of a thing, you know? And that's, again, the beauty of the expanded universe. Now, these are just things that I would want. These aren't things that would ever happen. But, yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to talk about some of the things that I would like to make if I were ever given the opportunity, even though I'm not much of a writer myself. But, yeah, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts. This video will get less views because there's spoilers in it, but I try to be pretty vague about everything that happens in those other series, because this is all hypotheticals in my mind, what goes on, so. Anyway, I hope you found it interesting. I've talked about this with a few people, and I wanted to voice it in a video, and also wanted to have something Star Wars related, since I won't this week because of Dune. But, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know, are my ideas stupid, good, bad? What would you edit? What would you add? What would you delete? Anything you want. Let's talk about this a little bit, in the comment section. For those of you who have read it, obviously you haven't read it, it doesn't matter. But let me know what you think. Do you think that would be interesting to explore? Do you think I'm stupid, a moron? Whatever the case, let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.